You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network, where I am broadcasting in an actual free state. I am your conservative Sherpa. I am guiding you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. So please note, what you're about to hear and see tonight consists of my opinion, my opinions only, and those of my guests. And as per normal, have I got an awesome guest for you, and only you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you tonight. I am doing the job the American media maggots won't. I am fundamentally changing America one leftist diaper at a time. But I want to reassure and assuage you that we don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversations. We are still serving stiff drinks in the saloon, along with facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, and common sense for normal personnel, such as me and you and your dog named Blue. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze, she is not. And I have a sad story about booze tonight that I was just made aware of. I guarantee I'll have you crying rivers in no time. No time. How sad is that? We are streaming live on Rumble. We are streaming live. We are streaming live streaming, otherwise known as live streaming for those of you who just tuned in. Streaming live on the SHR Media Network, the SHR Media YouTube channel. Two places on X, on my X, Sackhead Sean's X, and with luck, streaming at KLRN, or where they're doing it a little bit later, perhaps. And the other thing we're working on right now, and I was just talking to my guest tonight, Mike Fitzpatrick, about this, is we want to figure out how to go back to some kind of an audio stream, because audio streams are so tough to find. Now, we used to be on Spreaker. By the way, let me bring in my guest tonight. This is Mike Fitzpatrick. Mike, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, BZ. It's great to be back with you.
Thank you kindly. And like I said, Mike and I, we always chat. I usually chat with my guests before the show about a half hour or so to make sure we don't have any technological cock-ups, which are usually my mistakes in nature, just on account of, because that's who I am, and that's how you love me. You love me for that, folks, because in fact, I am your conservative Sherpa. This is Mike Fitzpatrick, CEO of the NCX Group. And I just want to remind everybody, if you would, subscribe to us on Rumble and give us, I think, I got to keep all this stuff straight. On Rumble, you give me a thumbs up. And you can also subscribe on the SHR Media YouTube channel. Please follow, like us, hit that little bell, ding, and then also subscribe, because I may get vodka, I may not, but I'm always angling after vodka, because after all, that's who I am. You wouldn't want me to be anything less than that. All the rest of the vegetables are lazy fucks, because they, corn is doing some, At least corn is doing something. Potatoes are doing something, and corn. But the rest of the vegetable kingdom is lazy. They're just lazy. Get off your asses and start producing alcohol. God, you guys, we have more. I had so much more expectations. I had higher expectations for vegetation. In the meantime, we're trying to find out. I used to be able to stream to Spreaker so that if somebody were in the automobile and they wanted to either listen live, I used to get a lot of interactions between truckers on the road who liked to listen to the show live as they're driving their big rigs down the freeway. See, that's a visual. You won't be able to see that on the audio, but they like to listen to audio. And Spreaker, Spreaker doesn't go live anymore. So we are super bloody disappointed in Spreaker. We're still trying to find, Sackhead Sean and me are trying to find, there's got to be another way to broadcast live, audio only. And we're having a hell of a time trying to find how to do that. There's got to be, it's 2024. It's almost 2025. So you're going to tell me that there's no way that we can do audio only live anymore? Well, I know why. Speaking of which, here's a programming note. I was speaking to my good friend Jeremy Hansen about this very same thing, podcasting, and he and I decided that, hey, why don't we do a little bit of a show this coming Thursday night? So this Thursday night in the Saloon, if you like Jeremy Hansen, come back and watch the show, listen to the show, 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. That's why it's a late night show, at least on the East Coast. And Jeremy and I are going to be talking about podcasting, what it takes to be in podcasting, and how the politics are, OMG, are they ever affecting the world of podcasting? If you want to have a show on YouTube, for example, the 24-hour, I instigated the 24-hour Tibetan bell ringing channel. And now my numbers are better than MSNBC and CNN combined. Well, I want to make more, have more people watch in podcasting as well. I mean, it really, to be honest, is it tough to beat CNN and MSNBC? No, not really. And then my second idea was the 24-hour check balancing channel. So for those few who are left who still have checking accounts, if you want to learn how to balance your checkbook, you can go to this channel. My guess is I'll still be making more money and more numbers, drawing in more eyeballs on the check balancing channel, and then MSNBC and CNBC. Then I had a final suggestion, a final thought. I wanted a 24/7 parakeet and budgie training channel, so that if you have a budgie or a parakeet, you could watch this channel. And I think that one, frankly, is going to send me over the top. I think I'm going to get, you could put CNN, MSNBC, CNBC. Who the hell watches? What is a CNBC anymore? I don't think anybody has any idea what that is.
Yeah, the last one really has some merit to it. I like that.
See, that's what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. So anyway, a whole bunch of things came up, and I'm not so sure that we're going to go more than about an hour. We're not really going to get into a hell of a lot of politics tonight. I kind of want to keep it the focus on the cybersecurity aspect and hacking aspect of tonight. But for those, now Mike and I are good friends, and we've been around for a while. And we talk, we share a lot of common interests. We have one really good friend in common, Lonnie Poindexter. And again, I think I said this last Thursday night. If you would, please, friends, neighbors, Romans, throw some prayers to Lonnie Poindexter. He's been on the show quite a number of times. Last week, he had triple bypass surgery. He was in ICU, had a little bit of a complication. He had some bleeding that had to be squared away, which was squared away. And Lonnie is doing fine. He's doing much better. He's probably going to, Mike Fitzpatrick, is he out of ICU yet?
He is out of ICU and in a regular room. So he's excited about that.
Okay.
Talk to him today. He sounds good and strong. It was more than just a triple bypass. It was,
there was something else that I forgot.
Yeah, they went in for three things. It didn't necessarily come out the way that they expected. That they ended up having more to do, and as a result, he was in a little longer than expected. But he's doing well. He's ready to get going. He's ready to get out of bed, and yeah, he's glad that it's over. The worst of it's over. So now's just the recovery portion.
And the recovery, I think, is going to be 5 months.
Yeah, probably so.
6 months, something like that.
Probably so.
So it will be lengthy. Anytime anybody cracks open your chest, because this wasn't a thin microfiber insertion into the chest. This was actually, we had to go in and make sure that we have sufficient room, that we can access all the factory equipped paraphernalia that was installed there originally. By God, one each. And they had to have room to be able to move around and whatnot. So anytime you have open thoracic or open chest surgery, number one, ow. Number two, it's going to be a while for you to recover. And Lonnie Poindexter is in that category. So please, if you would, extra prayers tonight. If you can throw some Lonnie Poindexter's way. He's in Sacramento, California, always spell it with a K. And he could appreciate all your prayers to make sure that he continues on the proper path of healing. God bless you, Lonnie Poindexter. We're thinking about you. And then after about 6 months, oh my God, next year. That's next year. That's maybe up to June next year. Wow. We'll be able to speak to you again on the show, which would be, let's see, in 60s or 70s vernacular, that would be either boss or bitchin'. One of the two. You pick. So anyway, tonight, this is Mike Fitzpatrick over here. And let me see if I can make him bigger. There we go. Yes, I can embiggen Mike Fitzpatrick, who is CEO of the NCX Group. And if you're wondering what the NCX Group is, I'm going to have Mike explain that in just a bit. But you can see over here, this is what they do: cybersecurity, data privacy services, keeping your business safe, that kind of a thing. There's their website. They actually have a place in space in the Internetio where you can go if you have questions, comments, curiosities, like Dr. Calgary's Cabinet of Curiosities. You can go over there. And so, Mike Fitzpatrick, tell folks a little bit about what NCX is and what you do and why you do it, if you would, please.
Well, BC, we've been doing this now for 23 years. So when I started the firm, and what we do is cyber risk management. So it's information security assessments, it's business continuity, it's incident response, and then managed security services to basically outsource your cybersecurry operations. So we've been doing this now for 23. We're going into our 24th year. When I started, no one knew what this was. There was no such thing as cybersecurity. Cybersecurity wasn't actually a word yet when I started this. And so it was a situation where I saw that a lot of the Fortune 500 companies that I was working with at the time really didn't have anybody helping them with cybersecurity, helping them map it out, detail what needs to happen, deliver on the complexities and identifying the risks that go along with running a business today. And so that's where we started. We've been, like I said, been working with companies. I have companies and clients that we work with that are global Fortune 50s, all the way to the small side, where we have a client that is 15 employees, but they're publicly traded on the New York Exchange. And so they have the same compliance and risk requirements as GM, for that matter, because they're publicly traded. So it's a unique and diverse group that we've worked with through the years.
And I will tell you this, folks, even though Mike and I are friends, and we've been so for a number of years now, I appreciate his dedication to client privacy. He has said he has some really big clients, like Ed Sullivan, a really big shoe. and he has really big clients, and he won't tell me who those clients are, and God bless him for that. And he has small clients and clients in between. And his dedication to keeping his clients' security and his clients quiet and doing the job as efficiently and effectively for them, is his dedication. Now, maybe, folks, this sounds a little bit like an ad for NCX Group, and it isn't. I'm not getting paid for any of this stuff. I do this stuff because I think spooling up, Mike tries. He really tries to spool me up on cybersecurity and get me to kind of remotely grok what goes on. And sometimes it's like hitting the poor guy's head against a wall. See the wall back there, that stone wall right next to the piano? He's had to, after the show, knock his head against that wall because he still can't get me to understand a semblance of the important stuff that goes on in cybersecurity. So I have him on because he educates me, for one. And two, he's entertaining as hell. Three, he's a super nice guy. Four, we share a lot of stuff alike together, including Lonnie, who is a very good friend of both of us for different reasons at different times. And Mike is just a really cool guy to talk to and knows what the hell he's talking about. And as nicely as possible, ridicules me as least he can.
Well, at least not within earshot.
Yeah. And afterwards, it's an entirely different show. That's not for public consumption, but that's a story and a show for another day. But I like to have him on because when there are questions about what's going on in terms of cybersecurity and hacking and businesses and corporations, do we have the tumultuous arcade of things to display for you tonight, all lumped together in the cybersecurity area? And that's why I contacted Mike, and I thought, well, this would make at least a good hour show for some of the things that are going on and to make sure that we update you appropriately. So for those of you who have not been here before, Mike Fitzpatrick explained a little bit of it, what he does at NCX Group. And this was the pivotal, I guess, story that made me want to talk to Mike tonight. And that's this. This just recently came out. And I asked Mike, we text all the time. And I asked Mike in a text, that's a story too tonight, as a matter of fact. Gee, I just Bigfooted myself. In any event, sending texts back and forth, I came across this story. I'm sorry, I need to point that way. This story over here. And then I'm texting to Mike and I said, is this a trend? Is this something we can expect in the future? Is this the new today and tomorrow? And Mike happened to answer something similar to this.
Yes.
Okay, this is where my face matches my shirt right now. Anyway, in this article, it says, hackers pivot from data breaches to total destruction. Shit. I should have put this book up.
Which book?
Maybe during the break, Sandworm. Mike recommended that I read this book, Sandworm. The author escapes me, but during the break, I'll bring it back up and we can talk briefly about Sandworm. And I read it. It was about an incursion, one of the first largest incursions ever in terms of hacking. Well, first, one of the biggest, and you correct me along the way, Mike Fitzpatrick, if you would, please. One of the biggest hacking incursions was Stuxnet.
Correct.
Of the United States into Iran to mess with Iran's nuclear program, i.e. all the centrifuges that were going on at the time as they were attempting to produce radioactive materials. So is that accurate, Mike Fitzpatrick, that Stuxnet was basically the first big active hack that people know of, at least at this point?
Well, okay. So in Sandworm, what you have is ransomware. Think of it as ransomware, malware that was launched on the world, and it was first used out of Ukraine to take down the Ukrainian power grid. So that's where it was first utilized in a test case. Then, as it grew and developed, then it ended up becoming a weapon for the Russians to use, and they used it as they invaded Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, and to take down all of their power grid before their army invaded. If you remember that back, was that 2013, 2014, somewhere in that area?
Right.
So, the reason it is called sandworm is the creator of this particular piece of monstrous malware actually is a massive Dune fan. So he wanted his beast to be a sandworm. And so that has been used in Petya and different types of ransomware going back to 2017, 2018. It's made its appearances at various points and has been absolutely devastating every time it's been used.
The other aspect of that is if people seem to think, well, God, there was a song and I can't think of the author's name of it. A lot of stuff I can't think of recently. Everyone hear the refrain, "It can't happen here. It can't happen." Well, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I've learned from Mike Fitzpatrick is, yeah, it can. And sandworm, if you read the book, is clear evidence that it can, in terms of the Russians went into and essentially took down a good portion of the electric grid of Ukraine on a whim. And it wasn't about extortion. It was about, well, I don't know. Let's
It was
see
about
if we
power
can
and
do
control
this.
is what it was about.
Yeah, let's see if we can do this, because if we can, wouldn't that be cool? I know, let's try. And they tried and it worked.
Well, the other thing that comes out in the book, and the book is well researched and it's all factual. The other thing that comes out is Ukraine is definitely the play toy of both the Russians and the United States.
Oh, and all of Europe for that matter.
Yeah, it is really no man's land for a lot of reasons. It's an interesting book, a great read, not too complicated as far as understanding what they're really talking about and the why it's being done. I didn't think. How about you, BC? Pretty easy to get through?
I'm a technological moron, as everyone knows. It's no shock that I am I'm a techno-Luddite. My word, my phrase for me, facts and evidence. And for the most part, I grokked the bulk of the concepts in that book. So if I can be led by the finger by an author so that I can begin to somewhat understand what it is that he's talking about in this book, then you can too. And it's like Mike said, I'm not a promoter of the book. I'm not a promoter of NCX. I just enjoy this stuff. It's fun to learn, and it's fun to understand that we are on the precipice. And as we look down into the precipice, as Nietzsche said, the precipice, the abyss, looks back at us. And the stuff, this is a cautionary tale. What Mike Fitzpatrick has been saying every time on my show is a cautionary tale for you and me and small businesses and medium businesses. I just made a new word. If you're a big corporation, you are a bigness. Okay.
That's it.
Just thought I'd tell you that. So it's a cautionary tale for everyone on every level, including me, some little winky guy with a computer just over this desk right over here.
Well, I think the thing that's really that people need to understand is, and to the point of the article, it's really no longer about stealing your credit card or your driver's license or identifiable information. It is really about cyber crime. Matter of fact, it's projected that in 2025, cyber crime will reach $10.5 trillion, trillion with a T, dollars in revenue. There's actually managed services for the hackers to use for their accounting purposes out there, for for dealing with the extortion money. So it's business, and business is good. The primary targets are small to mid-sized businesses. Why, might you ask? Well, we'll take a look at we'll take a look at a recent insurance study, and one from the Poneman Institute as well, that points out that somewhere between 80 and 85% of small to mid-sized businesses have actually, well, they've never conducted a cybersecurity assessment. 80 to 85% have never conducted a cybersecurity assessment. Why? Because they don't think that they are who the bad guys are looking for. The real reality is you are. Think about it. You are a soft target. You are an easy mark.
So is that the time that we should go into this? Do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a new
Talk about
podcast.
those bullet points.
But yeah, I mean, cybersecurity starts at your door. I mean, there's so many times where we have talked our way into a facility. So I don't care what technology you have. I don't care what you've deployed, because I can talk my way past your receptionist. I can talk my way past anybody. We've talked our way into water treatment facilities. We've talked our way through and into banks. So it's, again, your technology isn't going to stop that. Cybersecurity is people, process, and technology. We use technology to manage people and process. There is no silver bullet for cybersecurity in the technology section of this discussion. None.
What I'd like to do is come back after the break and go into bit by bit this story that you have right here, which is actually a podcast. You have a podcast periodically that addresses a lot of these things. And when we come back, I'd like to go into these bit by bit, because all of this is so commonsensical, but is ignored on a scale that is absolutely staggering. So I'm BZ. That is Mike Fitzpatrick. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to River of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a sharp wit and clear discussion. Tune in every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a refreshing dose of reality as we fearlessly tackle the tough topics with no nonsense, just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch River of Common Sense in action. He's here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite, he may not always be refined, but one thing's for sure, he always tells it like it is.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being, and in the good that comes from exercising these rights well. The founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic women who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. because life's too short for stiff, boring teas. Carrygirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. I am BZ. Thanks for being here tonight. It is my standard Mark I Model 13, regular normal show on a Thursday night. And tonight my guest is Mike Fitzpatrick. So welcome back. You can watch us on Rumble, shrmedia.com, and KLRN, the great KLRN. You can also jump into my plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room with one of the most unique couches you will ever see in years, in quite some time. And again, here is my guest tonight. It is Mike Fitzpatrick. I said that in terms of cybersecurity, it's worth going down and noticing and noting these things. We started just before the break. So Mike Fitzpatrick is a cybersecurity expert. He was talking about how he has in the past hasn't even really had to do much with technology, but can chat his way and his compatriots into a business, say they are X, Y, or Z, somehow manage to access their technology, their servers, a computer, whatever is necessary, and then go in and show the people that you are eminently hackable, and not just in the way that you thought. So Mike said that, let me go up here. Here's a fun fact. In the last 23 years, my team and I have conducted thousands of physical security assessments. And let me tell you, we've seen it all. From servers guarded by refrigerator doors to wide open windows just begging for an intruder, the risks are real and sometimes downright ridiculous. And then he has a few tales that he shared from his past. Now, you mentioned a grocery store chain in small town America.
Absolutely, one of my favorites.
And something like that. So what happened in that instance, if you can regale us with that tale?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting organization from the standpoint that they are a grocery store chain that provides service to second and third tier cities. So you won't find them in large cities. You'll find them in small cities. And they have probably 50 or 60 locations across California, Washington, probably even into Idaho, BZ. And so we went in to do a security assessment. And as we're there and we're going through the stores and we're looking and rattling doors to see what we can find, we end up making our way back to the corporate offices. And the corporate offices are in this very small town, population of 2,500. And we're there at night, and the windows to the place are wide open. They're not even pulled down. They're literally wide open. But, the fun part of this whole exercise with them was their server was an old 1900s garage that had been repurposed as the data center for this very thriving company. And they used AC units from Home Depot.
I love that part. I love that part. Isn't that American ingenuity right there? Thinking ahead. You got to cool these bad boys down somehow.
And then they used old refrigerator doors on the inside to retain the cool. So it was.
They're insulated, right? That's enough.
Oh my God. It was, I've never seen anything quite like it. But then you get over to the main electrical panel, and it's all those 1930s fuses. The circles that you plug.
All right, that you had to screw in.
Yes.
And they're made of glass.
And so they've got a supply of them. And when that runs out, I think they're going to put in a new electrical panel.
What happens if they run out? Ooh, bad.
Oh my God. Like I said, never seen anything quite like it. The fact that they leave their doors open at night. It's just the culture of where the place is. And it's one of those things where you have to wake them up and help them understand that without physical security, you can't possibly have data security. one cannot exist without the other.
Well, the thing that always impressed me when I speak to you are some of the stats that you mention. And I honestly think that a lot of these people, including myself, including small folks like me,
Mm-hmm.
don't think that we're going to get hacked, don't think that we're worthwhile, don't think that we have anything to lose, don't think that, well, you have to ask yourself, folks, if you got hacked and somebody said, hey, little boy, little girl, all those photographs that are in your file on your computer, would you pay $100 to get those back if I took everything? Would you pay $500 to get those back if I took everything? And by the way, if I got into your computer, what kind of compromising photos are in there in the first place? Oh, maybe that makes it worth $1,000 to get it back. Because if I'm a hacker, don't think that I'm not going to look, because that's my job. Depending upon what's in there, then it becomes increasingly more valuable to me, to you. So some of the stats, could you give us some of the stats of who it is that gets hacked and what some of the costs are?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the numbers, and honestly, I think there's a lot of CEOs and executives that don't believe the numbers. So let me say this. Every state in the United States, for a breach or a loss of data, has a law on the books that mandates that there's a postmortem so you can tell people what was breached, what was touched, was their data exposed, so you can notify them. It's a notification law. So because of that law, we now have the capability to really go through and analyze the extent. So the numbers are real. They are absolute because we have companies that have to notify based on the numbers. So when I say that, this is the reality of today. As I said, cybercrime is going to be 10.5 trillion in 2025. The way that they do that primarily and they grow their revenues is through ransomware and through business email compromise. Business email compromise is an email that goes typically to maybe the admin for the CEO that says, Donna, would you put together 100 Apple gift cards, and I'm going to use those in a presentation, and go ahead and send me the numbers. Well, so she goes through, puts it together, doesn't check with the boss that that's happened. And so she sends the numbers to the email address that was given, which is different than his or her normal one. And at that point, the cyber criminals can exchange that for cash or goods or services or whatever. The other side of this is they will use a business email compromise to generate revenue or pretend to change bank accounts. I have a friend who's in the construction business, and he was exploited for a better part of $35,000.
Holy crap.
Well, that's BZ. This is the fun part. Law enforcement. I mean, when you were in law enforcement, you know this. I mean, the reality is everybody thinks that the police department is their own personal private security detail, and it's not. So when you get into cybercrime, there's maybe 4 or 5 officers within a sheriff's department that are focused on cybercrime. Is that BZ? Is that a pretty comparable number from what you recall?
When we first got going, yes, that was accurate. We got to the point where just because of the geometric increase. Now, I go back to the 90s. When I was in homicide, I was offered a job in computer crimes. And then I got another job designing our EVOT course. But potentially I would have gone to computer crimes, which may have actually benefited me and made me not the ill-mannered boob that I am today. And at the time, I think there were perhaps 4 or 5. They were about to expand to 6 detectives. That was in the 90s. But now in larger departments, it's such an overwhelming crime that you can find. I think there are about 10 people now on our unit, but still,
It's not a lot.
that's not. This is, folks. It's a visual. This is an ass load. Okay, this is not. That is not an ass load of detectives to be used for something that's critical. And it becomes critical when all of a sudden, let's say you're in your 80s and your grandson, whose AI voice came in and called you on the phone and wanted, Grandma, can you send me $75,000 to this over here? I'm in a hell of a jam. I've got gambling debts. And
Yep.
Grandma does that. Or any number of examples of something like that. And they become a burgeoning, huge fiscal problem, and then a personal problem, and then an embarrassment, and then, oh my God, how could I have been so stupid? And then, oh my God, that emptied my bank account. And who's going to help me on this?
It's the threshold. I mean, in his particular case, it was 35,000, and it was one of his subcontractors that got hit. It was a invoice that was supposedly paid, and he lost $35,000,
which is a huge hit. That's a huge percentile hit to a small business,
without a doubt. The law enforcement side of it will not kick in either with the FBI cybercrime agents, which I know several of the guys and have worked with them for years. Will not kick in unless it's interstate, and oh, by the way, it's over $250,000 on the intrusion.
Yeah, it must be interstate just to begin with.
Yeah, and so local law enforcement has adopted the same standard. Unless you lost $250,000, the DA is not even going to touch it
because there's so much of it.
They cannot keep up. There's physically no way to do it. So the only way to really help yourself is to help yourself, to put in the measures to be as proactive as possible, to make your environment as secure as possible, to make it as hard a target as you possibly can to keep the bad guys from hacking and bringing down your business, because the game is no longer taking data. The game is now disruption. And these are the stats that we now know. And from a disruption standpoint, the typical disruption on a ransomware event is 22 to 24 days. Disruption costs on that 22 to 24 days is about $10,000 per hour or $240,000 per day to the average small to mid-sized business, some more, some less. $240,000 a day over 22 or 24 days is a disruption cost of $5.6 to $5.7 million is what that will cost your business. The reality of you surviving it is remote.
Well, I'm looking at the story over here, and folks, you can look. This is from, what is this from?
Axios.
Axios. So hackers have caught on. They're pivoting to absolute destruction, to destructive attacks in the hopes of getting businesses to pay ransoms again, because apparently that wasn't quite so productive. And yet, only if we completely threaten to or destroy something do people begin to pay attention. So it's time, it's money. Attackers have to do a lot more research and planning to carry out these schemes, but they're willing to do it, and they're willing to use you as a victim.
The BZ, the thing that is most interesting to me, and this is kind of leads to something else you'll share with the audience, and something else that we're launching after the first of the year, is I got called into a situation on a ransomware event, a friend of a friend kind of thing. And, he had his IT team working on it, trying to clean it up and get through it. And I first talked to him, I guess it was on day 7 of the event. And we had a good conversation, and the plan is for us to come in and do some cybersecurity stuff after the initial cleanup is done by his IT team. Spoke to him again about day 30. They were still not operational. They were still trying to get back online. And this is a large, well, mid-sized structural engineering firm that was hit with ransomware. And they have probably 100 employees, number of locations around the globe. They do some pretty good projects, pretty sizable projects. So I talked to him on day 30, and he says to me, he says, Mike, he says, you know, no one ever told me that cybersecurity was this critical to the well-being of my business. And then the second thing he said is, after all of this and dealing with this ransomware event, he said, I don't think I can trust my IT team anymore. So you have two things in this. As a CEO.
Okay, he thinks they're insufficiently competent?
Yes.
Okay, that's bad.
Well, he doesn't trust them because they still had not put Humpty Dumpty back together again after 30 days. So there's a couple of things here. One, as a CEO, you have an inner circle that you trust. So that's usually your attorney, your CPA, your bookkeeper, your insurance broker, and maybe your resident agent that helps you form your corporations and go through all this. So when he says nobody told me, that means somebody in that group or nobody in that group actually said to him, hey, Bob, cybersecurity is really critical. You need to think about this, 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 and this. Or because they didn't say it in a way that he understood, but he was absolutely dumbfounded by how devastating this was for the business. And, whereas a simple assessment, and this is going back to what I said earlier, 80 or 85% of businesses out there, small to mid-sized businesses, have never assessed their risk when it comes to cybersecurity and their business. They haven't gone looking for it because they refuse to believe that they're the targets. I'm a firm believer that if you throw a sign in the front yard that says ADT and another sign on your fence that says beware of dog, 99% of the bad guys that might want to try to break into your house will keep on walking.
Well, you have to do something.
But they're not doing anything.
Let me go back to this, and I want to put this back up. And folks, this isn't an ad. I do this, and Mike happens to be the CEO of NCX Group, and he happens to know a hell of a lot about cybersecurity. And I get him on because he's interesting. He speaks well. He knows what he's talking about. He is, in fact, the expert, and he can explain things in a way that make it palatable and understandable by most persons, perhaps even occasionally by me, but that's no guarantee whatsoever. So Mike was talking earlier about just physical plant. Cybersecurity, as you can see right here, starts at the door. And the lessons to be learned are, what about perimeter security? We're not even getting to we haven't even gotten to the computer yet.
Right.
What kind of perimeter security do you have? Do you have fences? Do you have cameras? What about lighting? Are there dark spots? If for no other reason than at night, especially not during daylight savings time, these hours when you've got your employees going back out to a dark parking lot. Is that really a good idea? Not particularly. They're not optional. They are your first line of defense. Then you mentioned access control, badge systems, visitor protocols, how many times do you see in cop shows, people are able to walk right into a police department? No, that doesn't happen. How many people on various shows walk into an ER?
I've done that too.
And generally, damn you if you can do that. That's really silly, stupid, and fattening. Internal security. What about server rooms? Are those doors locked? Who gets in there? Monitor workstations. And like you mentioned, the refrigerator doors that, while well insulated, might not be the best thing to cover your servers with. Training. Do people get training in your area? Do they actually get passwords? Does the entire business use a single password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? And what about audits? What about drills? What about testing your defenses? You're guessing, and that's not a strategy. Then you haven't even gotten to the computer aspect of it yet. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I used to work security in a nuclear power plant. And what we would do is we would round table, how would we attack this plant? And myself and the rest of the security guys and gals would sit down and we'd go out to all these various portions of the plant and try to figure out, okay, if we get attacked from this direction, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go first? If somebody tries to get into this room here, what are we going to do? If they come from the northeast fence, that's the one with the least amount of security. That one still has holes that need to be repaired, and so on. Do you do an audit? Do you do an evaluation? And I'm not here to parrot Mike or replace him in terms of cybersecurity. These are things that you ought to be asking all the time in any business. You really need to know all of these things, because here can be some of the lessons. Well, I'd like to point this out first. This is not absolutely 100% cheap or free, is it, Mike Fitzpatrick? Doing what needs to be done.
No, but it is essential.
It is essential, and it will save you from some things. Let me throw, and this is, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the show. This is sad. Now, as the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers back in the 60s used to write in there, by Gilbert Shelton, one of my favorite underground comic artists, I think Fat Freddy of the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, go ahead and try the alliteration in that one, boys and girls. I may be dumb and demented, but I can still say fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. Fat Freddy had a saying, and he used to say, times of no money will get you, Jesus, let me see, I have to get this right. Times of dope will get you through, I'm going to slaughter this. Okay, here it is. Dope will get you through times of no money, better than money will get you through times of no dope. And essentially, because I speak leftist, I can translate for that here, is you're going to have to make a sacrifice somewhere. That's just what today's age is. And as the mechanic used to say in the 70s commercial, you can pay me now or you can pay me later, but you're going to pay me. And when you pay me later, it will always be more expensive. And so it's no surprise. Everyone knows that BZ loves Kettle One. Because at the very end of the show, what do? I tell everybody about my KC-135 Kettle One refueling team. And occasionally, if I run out of kettle, because, dope, kettle, sometimes I used to have to go to Stoli. Well, Mike pointed this out to me before the show. Vodka maker Stoli's U.S. companies file for bankruptcy after a cyber attack. This is a big company. 2 U.S.-based subsidiaries of vodka maker Stoli Group have filed for bankruptcy protection in Dallas, Texas, after a damaging cyber attack, the Russian government seizure of its remaining distilleries in that country, and a dispute with the company's lenders likely brought about by the fact that they were hacked. And then someone asked, say, little American, do you have some money that we can have? Because if you don't, we're just going to leave you destroyed. Both companies are U.S.-based subsidiaries of the Luxembourg-based Stoli Group, which is not bankrupt. So this appears to be a quite targeted attack. The two companies entered bankruptcy with $84 million in debt, and the bankruptcy will give them more time to recover from the cyber attack and negotiate a debt restructuring that will preserve jobs. So the threshold is, if you're attacked, you may be subject to bankruptcy. You may be subject to having restructure your entire company. Now, if you're a big-ass company like Stoli and the Stoli Group, yeah, you might be able to withstand some of that. But as Mike mentioned earlier, the $35,000 that get ripped from a construction company, that might be all that particular individual or you and me as a private business. That may be all that we have in reserve. So all I'm saying is be smart. The other aspect of it, and this is about as political as I think I'm going to get tonight. Optimism, U.S. small business optimism jumps to its highest point in 3 years. That was December 10th. That's post-election. Gosh, I wonder why that may be. My suggestion to small businesses: if you have time and money to invest, because you're going to wait until the first of the year after January 20th to see how the prevailing political prairie winds blow and in what direction. But if you determine that, we have a couple of bucks to rub together and potentially we may have the ability to invest in making sure that all our doors are closed and secure to our corporations, to our computers, this might not be a bad time to go ahead and take advantage of that. And then, of course, some funds are discretionary. Some funds are not discretionary. Some funds shouldn't be discretionary. Protection of your computer information, non-protection of your computer information. Because how many times, folks, have you seen letters come across into your mailbox that say something similar to, "Dear consumer, your ass has been hacked and all your private information is gone. And it's being sold on the black market in Ukraine and China and Russia and Luxembourg and some little tribe down in Ethiopia whose name we can't understand because we can't pronounce it. But they're also taking advantage of the thefting of all of your information, and it's being sold. By the way, your credit card is on there too. Oh, and all your credit cards. Oh, and you're going to have to go get a new credit card. And oh, by the way, this is going to create hell for you on earth. Why go through all that stuff? Well, it happens frequently. So there's no need to do it. And the individual little businesses, your mom and pop vet down the street, we got 4 to 5 dogs. We had 5, now we have 4. We go to the vet all the time. Well, what happens if, let's say, all your information from the vet gets over there, which includes all your credit cards?
Well, what happens, BZ, what happens if the vet cannot actually access their systems with a ransomware event? Because that's probably more likely than stealing data. The stealing of data is passé. It really comes down to disruption, interruption, and destruction these days. And so what happens, it's like NHS in the UK when sandworm was used back in 2017, 2018, and they couldn't actually perform surgeries. They couldn't take anybody in. They couldn't function. FedEx during that time with disruption could not move product or deliveries from one part of the world to the other. They actually had to take a write down on their stock, on their SEC filings. They had to report that they were not going to hit numbers. So there's real consequence to this stuff, regardless of the size of the business or the operation. And, there's easy things, there's simple things that you can do to make yourself a harder target. And it's just this willfulness. And a lot of it, quite frankly, comes down to the fact that CEOs don't know where to start. They have a real lack of confidence when it comes to this. The other side of it is their IT guys. There's a disconnect between executive leadership and IT in a lot of cases, and they don't communicate well. So that needs to change too, somehow, some way. But it's a much bigger, more complex problem than people give credit to.
Well, and it's a massive problem, because it doesn't just affect the business. If you do business with X, Y, and Z, Eventually, it's going to affect you, and has in the past and probably will be in the future. I'm PZ. That's Mike Fitzpatrick. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Edge of Liberty. Join me right here on the SHR Media Network every Monday and Friday, 12 on the Pacific, 3 on the East Coast. On this show, we'll discuss news, politics, the government, how cranky we are about the government, and more. If you want to hear hard talk, good interviews, sarcasm, bad jokes, and oh God, that really is me in a nutshell. Either way, check me out right here on the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Friday, 12 Pacific, 3 on the East, on the SHR Media Network.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? Then check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com. 7armors.com. Faithful, vigilant, steadfast, passion.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is the second hour here in the Saloon. I want to tell everybody that you can jump into our new, unique, plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room. It looks like that. We have matching sofas. Who wouldn't want to be tickled by Bigfoot's fingers in some kind of an intimate area by a big, shaggy sofa? I know I certainly would. And so tonight with me is Mike Fitzpatrick, who is here tonight courtesy of Mike Fitzpatrick, because he's Mike Fitzpatrick. And welcome back, sir. Question for you.
Yes, sir.
No,
yeah. I just went over and I got my stash or a stash of some of my alias IDs that I use and badges that I use to walk into places.
Oh, cool. Because, you know, if it looks official, it must be.
No one looks.
Because if you've got a little plastic placard, for example, I have Mulder's FBI badge, and I can get into all certain, because I look like Mulder. Hell, some people probably think I look like Scully as well. That's how closely people look at various ID badges. Yep. So if it's plastic, it's laminated, and it has a little clippy thing, and you can put it on your shirt or your pocket. Come on in, the water's fine, no big deal. What I'd like to do is play the 54-second video that you've done at NCX Group, which hosts and illustrates what it is that cybersecurity outfits like your own can do for people. And then after this, maybe tell people a little bit more or add to it. This is from NCX
Cybersecurity.
Group.
You know it's critical, but where do you even start? The tools, the jargon, the constant what ifs? It's enough to make anyone freeze. At NCX Group, we get it. That's why we created My CSO Advisor, a service designed to clear the fog. One assessment, actionable steps, and here's the kicker, a $500,000 warranty to back it all up. From reducing your cyber insurance premiums to meeting compliance goals, my CSO advisor makes cybersecurity simple. Finally, whether it's reducing your cyber insurance premiums or meeting compliance requirements, my CSO advisor turns questions into answers and stress into strategy. Protecting your business isn't just for later, it's for now. Ready to start? Contact NCX Group and let's secure your business today.
See, and this should be a priority. This should be something that everyone wants. Everyone should want every major corporation, every business, big to small, to do that because it's going to cover them. And they won't have to use their insurance. And if they use their insurance, their money on their products and services and goods will probably go up due to the hacking issues. You don't want that to happen if you're a consumer, because eventually that's going to circle around like a bad boomerang, pitted with little pieces of jagged glass. And when you go to grab it, bad things are probably going to happen. So you should want every small business, including your own if you own one, secure in some fashion, because eventually, sooner or later, it is costing you, me, the consumer, and it will continue to cost you and me, the consumer, because the business of business is not to go out of business. They may have to declare bankruptcy, and it may be a total rip. They may be gone. Who knows? Will Stoli, Dallas, Texas, be able to come back? Well, personally, I hope so. But that's just me. But who survives and who hasn't? So Mike Fitzpatrick, who is here on my show, and, I shouldn't have said these things. Mike, you know me. Mike, what's going to happen tonight is I don't expect that I will be on more than an hour tonight. So if you're going to budget time, Mike, remember, you won't need more than an hour.
I took the over instead of the under.
Okay. All right. Very, very small thing. Yeah. Thank you. Because he knows my nature.
I know how these go. I know. Yeah. We don't even stick to a script normally.
No, we don't. There were a number of things that I wanted to go through tonight, and I wanted to have Mike on because hacks now are vindictive. Hacks aren't just for money. Hacks are, we're not just going to inconvenience you. How about we just fucking destroy you and not let you regroup or do anything like that? So Mike Fitzpatrick, can you regale us as best you can recall of businesses, big and small, that have not been able to recover after a hack?
Well, I mean, the statistics are really, really quite clear on this. We know that last year, and the number rose dramatically last year. All right, when I say last year, I mean 2023 and going into 2024, with ransomware attacks and business email compromises specifically. And a lot of that is driven by this whole new generative AI phenomena. It really has improved the game of the ransomware and the phishing organizations out there, especially those out of Nigeria. They're using Grammarly and some of the grammar checkers, and the AI content that's written is a little bit better and a little grammar free. So it's a little bit more believable. So with last year, we jumped from 62% of small to mid-sized businesses had a cybersecurity event to this year. The data is showing the number is 72%. So a 10% increase, which is massive. Of that 72%, the statistics point to 66% will be out of business within 6 months. That means they're not able to deal with the disruption costs. They're not able to pay the penalties, the fines, the fees. They're not able to recoup the customer reputation damage that goes along with it. And that's why we built the whole My CSO advisor. It's designed for small business, small to mid-sized business with probably less than 100 employees. Really focuses on the 10, 11, 12 essential things that you need to have in your business. And if you get them right, I get to give you a $500,000 warranty to help offset any financial impact that might come from a ransomware event or a business email compromise. The other side of it is we have options for cybersecurity awareness training that go with that, as well as incident response. So that if something does happen, you have the number to the fire department to call before you need it, with labor rates already negotiated and already accepted by the insurance companies. And if we do all this right, we can lower your cyber breach insurance costs by 20 to 25%, which is significant.
See, and why wouldn't people want to do that? Why wouldn't people want their local businesses to continue? In other words, isn't it a lot nicer to be able to walk down the block to, I don't know, your local pharmacy that fills all your medicinal needs, and the local grocery store, the local pharmacy, the local dry cleaner? My guess is, Mike Fitzpatrick, you've had things like dry cleaners have to go bankrupt or get their information hacked in a dry cleaning business or a smaller business like that just completely eradicates them. You know, it isn't just for the benefit of the company, although obviously it is. It's for the benefit of all the people that use those goods, services, and products from all the various companies. And it keeps them from having to add that tab onto whatever it is that, because you're going to pay. We're the consumer. It's not the job of a business to go out of business. Conversely, your information should be behind a proverbial digital safe so that you're not splayed naked on the street and people from other countries or even in country can steal all your information and hack you, maybe threaten your home, your businesses, your banks, your banking, any accounts that you might have. It pays everybody to be very smart for cybersecurity. The last section of the show, probably the last 15 minutes or so.
Well, hold on a second. Did you want to hear a couple of, stories with Mike as far as things that I know that have happened that we've seen out there?
Oh, please. I love stories. I love Mike's stories.
Story time with Mike.
Yes.
So, through all the years, we've heard a variety of different cases and different situations. One, if everybody remembers the Sony breach, I was actually on the phone with somebody from Sony in the IT department at Sony as that attack was going on. It was myself, a friend that's a former FBI cybercrime agent, and another IT person. Far worse than what anybody had been led to believe. They were knocked all the way back to paper and pencil. So even 9 months later, in another meeting that I had, somebody shows up in the meeting, they're former Sony, and they were there as well. 9 months later, they had only recovered 10%. They had not gotten back to really using computers yet. So that's Sony. One of the saddest cases, and this is part of the reason why with my business, I actually care about the small and mid-sized businesses rather than the large corporations, maybe a little bit more, simply because I know what it is. I know what it's like to start a business. I know what it's like to have sleepless nights when you struggle to make payroll or deal with this situation or that situation, and to lose it when you could do something so simple to make it hard and difficult is something that I just want to personally try to have something for those businesses to have access to expertise. And a lot of that is driven by a story with a CEO that I spoke to, who was the CEO of what's called a PEO, Professional Employment Organization. So this is an organization that handles your health insurance, your payroll, those kinds of things for the smaller companies out there. Talking to him about the statistics, right? 62% of businesses, were exposed, had an incident in X year, 66% out of business within 6 months. And then he says to me, Mike, I'm not a statistic. And I go, what do you mean you're not a statistic? We're not a statistic. I said, explain to me. He said, we had a situation where, and again, our payroll accounts for the companies that we do payroll for were hit by Russian hackers, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 to $2.6 million was exfiltrated out of our bank accounts. We've been in business for, yeah. We were in business for 20 years. And he said, Mike, no one talks about the damage that occurs behind the scenes in one of these events. He said, they don't talk about the damage to your reputation. They don't talk about the friendships that have been around and with you since high school that now no longer want to even walk down the same side of the street with you. The damage and the impact to your children with their friends and families and all the businesses in your area that you support. But he said, no one really talks to you about the impact to your business partner who's been your best friend since you were 7, and they develop a drug and alcohol problem and end up taking their lives. No one
businesses can ruin lives, and people have been killed over business disputes.
Yes. So this is why I always try to have a service offering for small business to help them do the right things, to put the right measures in place, and help them build proactive fences that will do things to keep them safe and keep their businesses successful. That's why my CSO advisor was put together.
Businesses are frequently seen as the enemy of the people. And there's a story coming up that I will address. Depending upon your thoughts, there's some people that say, and there are many leftists who have said, maybe this guy deserved it. Maybe this guy and people like him deserve it. Maybe people who run huge corporations deserve that. And was there fallout from this? And the answer most assuredly is, of course, yes, there is. Now, will some people, if they were smart, look into making sure that their servers and their cybersecurity is more spiffed up after this? Well, they sure better had do that, because we're seeing the results of this. And I'll get to this in a moment. I want to start out generally with the hack itself, because we spoke to each other about some of the ramifications of United Healthcare. But people would want and should want security because, well, even though the suspect in this, Luigi Mangione. Hi, Luigi. How many times have people done that because of that name? Probably tens of thousands, including me. But Luigi had a problem and had an issue and was able somehow. See, there's more to this story, a lot more. How did Luigi know where this individual was going to be? Was he hacked? Was his business hacked? Was his account hacked? Did he click on the wrong email? Who knows yet? But did it have an immediate effect? Yes, that was United Healthcare. The very next day, what occurred? Anthem, I think it's Anthem Blue Cross, decided, oh, well, maybe we'll rethink our anesthesia problem and program. And that changed. Something else happened that day, too. Throughout all throughout the boneyard land in terms of healthcare and big corporations. Lots of corporations removed photographs and information about the chief executive officers, the administrators, the people who work within that company, and their contact information and their photos and their descriptors and anything about them, and scrubbed them from the websites to make sure that things like this don't happen again. So will we, the consumers, pay for this? Yes, in a grand way, we will. But did that one guy accomplish something that leftists wanted to accomplish? You can say perhaps he did, because now apparently that anesthesia program and the way they handled it and paid for it has changed. Is this an incentive then for other people to go after other corporations? Perhaps. I don't know. I would never wish a particular individual to be shot. This guy started small. This guy didn't start like Luigi Mangione, whose mommy and daddy came from money. They were a moneyed family, and they are now. The guy who was the CEO started off small. Now, no matter what you think of him or what he did, does he deserve to die shot in the back by some guy with a printed suppressed weapon? I don't think so. If you don't like him, there are ways to do it, but shooting people in the back is not the way. Now, that having been said, let's go to this article. See, there's something, or there are a series of somethings about this that just stink. And I may mention them this coming Thursday. Today, I will not. I will simply toss a few suppositions out in the air. Now, Mike Fitzpatrick, you led me to believe, and I believe this is correct, that the United Healthcare hack that occurred, I believe, early this year, January, February.
Yes, exactly. Ransomware event.
That was one of the biggest hacks that you've seen. Can you describe a little bit of that, Mike Fitzpatrick?
Well, I mean, it was a ransomware event. Definitely. I mean, we were in and out of the hospital at that point in time with a family member, and, getting bills paid and processed through Change, which is who our provider uses, who most of the providers use, took forever. It was pushed into April or June before invoices from January were paid. So it was a massive breach or ransomware event. Still exactly what happened and the extent hasn't been fully disclosed, but it was significant enough to potentially be an opening into maybe, let's say, the calendar for the particular executive, or somebody on the inside gave him information of where he was going to be, or he followed the shareholder information and knew that he was going to be speaking at the shareholder event. BZ, the part that I don't get why he did not have a protective detail, because almost every CEO now has a protective detail of some kind. It's pretty standard stuff. And so why at 6:45 in the morning did he not have a protective detail? Why did he not, if with them not there, they could have taken him out the back door of the hotel that he was staying in, driven to where the location was, arrived at the back loading dock area, come into the hotel through the kitchen, as we've seen in all the movies, and gain access that way in a very controlled environment. Why was he walking down the street at 6:45 in the morning in New York City? That makes no sense to me.
And as you also indicate, how was it that someone knew to be there? Because apparently he didn't just walk up to the guy. He had been there laying in wait
Yep.
for that individual. Now, in terms of charging, if that is in fact, if Luigi Mangione is in fact the suspect, in New York City, they're possibly going to charge lying in wait. If you lie in wait, that tends to lead itself or lend itself to a murder charge, murder in the first degree, because then with lying in wait, you can associate malice aforethought with that. In other words, this was a plan.
Yep.
This individual had the triumvirate, the motive, the means, and the opportunity to complete said crime. It wasn't just an attempt. And malice aforethought, i.e. planning, is a major aspect of going for a murder charge, which, again, the F then equation, if this is the guy, then New York is likely going to charge murder for this guy. So he has to ask himself, well, was it worth it? Business Insider has this. Who was this guy? He was an Ivy League graduate from a wealthy family and left an online trail before his arrest. He founded an app. He talked about AI on X, and he read the Unabomber manifesto. He attended elite schools. He favorably reviewed the Unabomber manifesto. I have words to say about that, but not today. He founded an app and worked in tech. So again, that would lend you to questions about how does tech associate with this guy and Brian Thompson, the CEO? Is there linkage? And if so, what is the linkage? Now, they said that one of his base motivations might have been the fact that he had back pain. There was apparently a photo of an x-ray with 4 pins or screws visible in his lower back. So was that the motivator for that? It could be. It very well could be his base motivator. Was he interested in AI? Yes, he was. He was accused of trespassing before. He comes from a very large and a wealthy, influential Baltimore family. So something as simple as someone recognizing him and calling the police and having the people in Altoona, the police department in Altoona, respond. I have his manifesto in here. They say his motive wasn't clear, but his manifesto is in here. By the way, he had 3 casings that I think were deny, defend, and depose. That's what it was. His 3 words were deny, defend, depose, and he got them from this particular book by a guy named Feynman, which indicated delay, deny, defend. So there's the linkage with regard to those words. So it would appear this guy was a rather motivated individual. And let me see if I can find, I found his manifesto. That is not the story. Maybe this is the one right here. Okay. This is short enough to read. And I would be normally taking a break right about now, but I'm not because it's my show and I get to. The manifesto, it reads like this. He wrote, "To the feds, I'll keep this short." Apparently he knew to whom directly to write and whom would go after this, he believes. "To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. I am unconvinced." That's me, a little interjection from me. I'm not convinced. He may have had help from other individuals, if for no other reason, to purchase or buy or create the weapon that was used. Was he alone in terms of knowing how and where that CEO was going to be at 6:45 after he was lying in wait? To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, and a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not so much info there. I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is and apparently what came after that was indecipherable. United is the blah, blah, largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has growth. It has grown and grown, but it has our life expectancy? ? No, the reality is these indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, e.g. Rosenthal, Moore, decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. But I think there's more. I would submit, yeah, but wait, there's more. Apparently, he did, in fact, have debilitating back pain. Apparently, yes, he did go radio silent to friends before a healthcare CEO shooting. Those were the reports. But the other aspect of this is there's so many places that I could go with this. I'm not going to do it here tonight. The bottom line throughout all of this is something is rotten in Denmark. Something really smells. Well, it's like, I can't think of the name of the guy, but it's immaterial. The guy that sat on he lay down on the sloped roof, which is why apparently the U.S. Secret Service couldn't get to it because it was sloped, and that was so dangerous for the U.S. Secret Service officers themselves, the agents themselves individually. Or are we to chalk it up by just one guy with a .223 weapon firing at Donald Trump because of execrable security, almost killing what became the presidential nominee back in July of this year? And we've so forgotten that is so far in the past. Is that a one-off? Is this guy a one-off? Or is there, as I frequently say, but wait, there's more. But I think cybersecurity, physical security, personal security, as you've indicated, these are all aspects that must now be, they have to come into play. When I went to Freedom Fest in 2016 and 2017, which is a big conference for libertarians, and they gather in Las Vegas, and Freedom Fest 16 and 17 was at Planet Hollywood, and I don't remember the place the second time, but Steve Forbes was there, and Steve Forbes knocked back bourbon with myself and Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And that was fun. Steve Forbes is the publisher of a magazine. Now he's a wealthy individual. He's the son of Malcolm Forbes that started the magazine Forbes, which went into all sorts of issues and articles over many, many years, detailing and documenting people who were millionaires and billionaires, what they did with their money, etc. Steve Forbes had security. Yeah. This is 2016 and 2017. Steve Forbes had a bulky little security guy that was bald that had a very grim visage on his face all the time and was watching for Steve 24/7, wherever he goes. Steve went to the little dinner. We had dinner at a table adjacent to him, and his little, the guy was kind of little, but he wasn't 6'7", but he was at least as big as me. He was watching him all the time. That's Steve Forbes. Well, why? As you indicate, why are we neglecting security for individuals? Why are we neglecting security for ourselves? Why are we neglecting security for our president? Why are we neglecting security for our data? Because this all leads to a tragic pile of unfortunate and terrible events. And I'm afraid, and this is where I begin to step off my platform at this point, because the show is not too far from ending. Why do we let this happen? Because, as I said, we're going to pay. Somebody's going to pay. We're always going to pay. do I agree with what is one of the biggest drivers? Folks, have you not looked at anything on TV except the aspects of cable where you don't have ads, but everywhere there is an ad on anyone's television, it seems as though 75% of the ads are for drugs.
Yep.
Drugs. Why is that? Can you not suggest that we ourselves as individuals, as consumers, are opening the door for all these big pharma companies to graciously walk in and fleece the fuck out of you? And I would suggest yes, because they're pumping the drugs all the time, 24/7, almost wherever you go. One of the first things that we decided in magazines, I can remember where they were there in Look and Life magazine and all the other magazines, until finally somebody decided, let's just take all the tobacco advertising and cigarette advertising out of it. You don't even see that much on TV anymore. I can't remember the last time I saw a cigarette ad. Or can you, Mike Fitzpatrick?
No, they've been gone a while. It's and hopefully when Bobby gets in, those disappear quickly. Hopefully they're removed, because the mental aspect of the game and the manipulation of feeding people something that they think is wrong with themselves begins with those ads. And so they'll go in and ask for those particular drugs, those particular prescriptions, thinking that they have an issue, or the manipulation is real. The struggle is real. BC, we were, as you're talking about that, as far as how the CEO might have been manipulated, it might have been social engineering, it might have been just simple digging. We had a situation, and this has happened with a couple of celebrities that we've been involved with, as well as the creator of an app. The creator of this app all of a sudden started having people show up when he was going to non-public events. They knew his calendar.
What?
Yeah, it's and it turned out that they were utilizing Google Docs and Google Calendar for all of their stuff. And so this app is a mental health app, and it it had to be somebody at Google was an absolute fan of this particular app, and because he had access, and I use he or a guy is a general term in IT because it's typically guys. Because this particular person had access to their Google account on the back end at Google, they were able to distribute information as far as where this individual would be at what time. So people showing up at his house, people showing up for private dinners. It was unbelievable. The access that people had to his everyday life. And even this guy, a startup application company, had private executive protection detail.
Well, these are different times. There's no doubt about that. And I would like to, along with Mike Fitzpatrick, I didn't want to interrupt his speaking, but at what I hoped would be the conclusion of what it was that he said, I so wanted to interrupt him by going, in terms of nailed it. People are doing and seeing what they're told to do and see by way of their television and social media and the push by all sorts of agendized individuals. And I will go and mention this. This has nothing to do with cybersecurity, but one of the best illustrations of that is all of a sudden, where the hell did we get the idea that it's a great idea, it's a wonderful idea to take 6 and 7 and 8 and 10-year-olds and push them to transition. There were some parents recently, because of this massive push, this flood of false information, that their 2-year-old knew that they were in their wrong body. Their 2-year-old, most 2-year-olds don't know how to shit appropriately yet, much less grok the concept of I really am a girl and I'm trapped in a boy's body. Well, where the hell did they get those ideas? Where the hell did we get the idea to be so incredibly manipulated? Where the hell did we get the idea to be so incredibly regulated? Where the hell did we get the idea to be so regularly medicated and propagandized? And everyone knows where that comes from. To be a logical and thinking human being, a consumer of life, that doesn't seem to be true anymore. How many tranny pushes were there 20 years ago? None, because it wasn't a thing. This is a thing right now. Drugs are a thing right now. So you have to ask yourself a few logical thinking questions. Did this guy do the right thing? Could this all have been avoided? Is this going to create a tsunami that will not go from just, say, the medical industry? Will this go to another industry? Will this go to another industry? And will this go to an industry that somebody way over here doesn't like anymore? And will this go to an industry that will crash you? Will this go to an industry that will affect you personally? What about your neighbor next door? Life is nuts because people are nuts. I don't believe in man. I believe in God. And it's as simple as that. And if you folks think that you have seen the end of this, life is just getting more complicated and crazier. It's not the end of the world, but we are in another transition time. And oh my God, somebody opened the door and I'm walking completely through it because after all, like I say, it is my show. The pushback after January 20th will be legion. But I have to leave you with one particular question, or one particular illustration, I should say. And then I'd like to have Mike Fitzpatrick wrap things up in a logic and cogently stated form, which he does, which I never do, because that's just me. And that's why you want me and raised me to be the fat, obese somnambulist that I am right now. How is it that we've gotten to the point where we can have an individual who applied a chokehold to a man in a New York subway car in the midst of all people of all races and all stripes and all colors, and people believed him to be doing the right thing, that we decide that we're going to try him, that we decide that we're going to apply a murder charge to him, when in fact, as we know, there was no malice of forethought. And then the jury decides, well, not guilty, go away. And then that was an encounter that he hadn't wanted, hadn't anticipated, hadn't prepared for in any fashion whatsoever. And yet, because of a verdict that someone disagrees with, we have a certain cadre of individuals who have said that he should stay out of New York, and have very pointedly said that if he stays in New York, he's probably very well going to get himself killed. And no one does anything about that. And as Biden said, that he wanted to get the prosecutor off the case in Ukraine so that he didn't harm his son, and said it in public time and again. And we completely ignored that. We're going to completely ignore the people who have said in public, on TV, any number of times, that if this guy comes back, they're likely to go ahead and kill him because they run the city, not the cops and not anybody else. And nothing will happen to those folks. Nothing. That's the country in which we live right now. And another reason that I say I am so glad that I do not live in an urban rat cage. Off my platform, here I come back down to earth. Mike Fitzpatrick, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you can be found. And I, of course, will always have you back when we have issues of cybersecurity. And thank you. Multi kudos to you. And thanks for your time tonight, sir.
Well, one, it's always a pleasure. Two, I actually love the whole stepping out on your platform rants that come from you. They are.
And they are. Make no mistake, they are.
I enjoy them. I don't know about everybody else, but I enjoy the hell out of them because it is something where I learn a little bit, learn something new when it's story time with BZ. And so,
well, don't think I didn't appreciate story time with Mike, because I did. I love those stories.
I mean, it is a different time and a different world, and I think you're right. We are in a period of transition. You and I have talked about this before. I think Gen Z is the next hero generation. They just don't know it yet. And Gen Z is turning out to be far more conservative than the millennial generation. So,
hooray.
Well, I mean, that particular Gen Z has been through some stuff. I mean, got a son that's in that group. They went through, the change in security and traveling and what you have to go through just to travel. They've been through the Great Recession of 2008, 9, 10, where a lot of them had family members or even their own families lost their homes through foreclosure.
Sure.
They've been through the pandemic. They weren't able to graduate high school with their class or have college disrupted. So they've had some stuff happen that has made life harder. But I again, I appreciate the time. Where people can find us is at ncxgroup.com or on Twitter at ncxgroup, Facebook at ncxgroup, or on LinkedIn at ncxgroup. And so we have podcasts out there on Spotify, and it gets distributed to Apple and a couple of other places. We're starting to do a little bit on video on YouTube, but nothing crazy. Again, we're here to help as many businesses as we can. And BZ, as always, love you and I appreciate the time. And it's always fun. It makes me chuckle. I look forward to it all day. And so anyway, happy to do it anytime.
Thank you ever so kindly. That was Mike Fitzpatrick here in the Saloon. I thank him for being here. I thank you for being here. And we'll be leaving as we customarily do. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from BZ's minuscule little studio that he controls over. It's his domain and everything is set up properly. And when I leave it, I come back and it's the same way. Bonus. And promotional consideration, as I normally say, excuse me for a second. After speaking this amount of time, sometimes I have to cough. So promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, by Shure and Electro Voice microphones, by the Arrakis board that I have over here, and also by Pratt & Whitney engines providing dependable... That's all, folks. And also by my KC 135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I most definitely will be concerning at the end of this show. You can bank on that little mofo. Thanks to everybody being in chat. Thanks to the back and forth tete-a-tete between the folks in chat in the YouTube chat and also in the Rumble channel chat. I love you all, guys. Come back Thursday night. More Saloon, more drinks, more snow, more winter, more bobosity. Everybody, God bless. Take care. Be safe. Thanks again, Mike.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep. Good night, everybody. Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy. Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob. What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing? Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.